Hey, folks. Wanted to say hi really quickly and to just give Donald Trump a message. Since you threatened to sue the Lincoln Project this morning, go for it. Go for it.
The legal and personal fight between former President Donald Trump and the Lincoln Project heats up. I'll be joined by Mediaite's Aidan McLaughlin to break down this war of words. Also, is there another victim of that 70s show actor and accused rapist Danny Masterson? And what can we expect from his upcoming criminal trial? Journalist Tony Ortega explains. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
Your attorneys may appear in court on your behalf without you present.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you also understand that you must be present anytime the court orders you to be present for any substantive hearing, for any preliminary hearing, for any trial, and for any disposition in this matter?
Yes, Your Honor.
There are a few new developments in the Danny Masterson case that we really need to talk about. As we've discussed here on Sidebar, that 70s show actor, who's also a renowned Scientologist, is headed to trial for allegedly raping 3 women who were then Scientologists between 2001 and 2003 out of Los Angeles. And we believe that the trial will start in October. And if he's convicted, he could face up to 45 years to life in prison. But now we are learning about another potential victim. I'm joined right now by journalist Tony Ortega, who's been following this case. He wrote a great piece on this on his Substack, The Underground Bunker. It's where he writes daily about Scientology controversies. And he's also the former editor-in-chief of The Village Voice and has been writing about Scientology since 1995. Tony, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming on Sidebar.
Jesse, thanks for having me on. This is great.
Yeah, you got to tell me what's going on with this, potential new victim. And also, why are we really only hearing about this right now?
Right. Well, let me give you a little background. In April 2020, I reported that 7 women had been interviewed by the LAPD in regards to allegations against Danny Masterson. A couple of months later, in June 2020, the LA District Attorney revealed that it had considered the allegations of 5 women when it charged him in regards to the allegations by 3 women. So there have always been multiple women in this investigation. I believe that some of the women they made allegations, but they weren't charged. They're still going to end up as witnesses in the trial. That's one of the reasons this trial is going to be so interesting. But what the new development is, there's an 8th woman that I had heard about. And the way we had heard about this was that a woman who was formerly a Sea Org official in Scientology had reported to her husband, Aaron Smith Levin, who's a well-known former Scientologist and YouTuber, that when she was in the Sea Org, a woman came forward to her with allegations against Danny Masterson. I just didn't know if law enforcement had heard about that. But this past week, Aaron at his YouTube channel talked about all this on the record and said that his wife definitely had gone to law enforcement. Now, the problem is, though, that this 8th victim alleged victim is still in Scientology. And one of the things we've learned in this case, Jesse, especially with testimony last year in the preliminary hearing, is that it's against Scientology policy to turn in a fellow Scientologist. So I reported that we now have confirmation that the LAPD has been told about this victim, but that doesn't mean that this woman is cooperating, and I don't have any evidence that she is. But like I said, there have always been more women who've made allegations than the 3 he's been charged on, and we will be hearing from at least one or more of these women in the trial itself.
And my understanding is the women who are going to be testifying against Masterson, they didn't even know about her, right? They didn't even know about this additional victim?
They didn't know about each other. That's part of what took so long that they testified to this last year, is that each of them thought they were the only victim. And it wasn't until 2016 that they began to find out about each other and decided we need to go to the police. And that's part of what took them so long.
All right, me lads and lassies, I want to talk to you about something very special. Every time I try to do a Scottish accent, every time it sounds like a leprechaun. It is the worst. I am terrible at it. What I'm trying to do is talk to you about established titles. If you don't know about established titles, it is a really cool gift to give somebody. I mean, how many times can you give somebody a sweater? You know what I mean? Well, Established Titles is a company that allows you to buy a parcel of land in Edelston, Scotland. That's right, even just 1 square foot of dedicated land. And when you do that, you get a certificate just like this one. That's right. I am a landowner, kind of a big deal. I get my own unique plot number. You get to become a lord or lady under Scottish custom. And not only that, establish titles for every order they plant a tree. They work with charities across the world to support global reforestation efforts. It's just a fun, novel way to help preserve the picturesque woodlands. And right now, Established Titles is not only running a massive sale, but if you use the code LawCrime10, you get an additional 10% off. So you go to establishedtitles.com/LawCrime10 and you can get your gifts now and help support the channel. Do we have any details about the interaction between Masterson and this alleged new victim, how this went down? I mean, any semblance of understanding what might have happened?
I don't have details about what happened to this new victim. However, what is consistent is that she's a Scientologist. I mean, that's of the 6 women now that the DA at least has considered, and including this new one, 5 were Scientologists. So that's kind of a consistency. The other thing that the 3 women who are going to trial with him on, they all have a consistency in that they all claim that they were drugged, that they were violently raped, they were threatened not to speak. That's something the prosecution is definitely pushing forward, is the similarity of the different cases, and that's something that Danny's attorneys are fighting.
Yeah, it was something that we kind of saw in the Harvey Weinstein trial, which we covered here on Law&Crime. I do want to ask you something. So just correct me if I'm wrong. There's this potential other victim currently in Scientology, right? She's still in Scientology. LAPD may investigate. Can they go to the Church of Scientology and find out more information? I mean, it seems like a conflict, right? Now that this is coming out.
Well, I mean, with these kind of cases, the victims really need to want to cooperate. And if she's a Scientologist, there's a very good chance that she won't. But like I said, there are other women. They're not part of the trial, but I've talked to some of them, and they claim they're ready to testify. So I think we're going to hear from more than the 3 women at the trial itself, which is scheduled to begin October 11th.
Tony, I was reading a little bit more on your Substack about this. There's also been subpoenas that have been issued in anticipation of this trial. And my understanding is some people are not too happy about them, right?
That's right. That's right. And I learned that one of the subpoenas that's kicked up some controversy, the prosecution put out a subpoena, and the law firm Laveley and Singer has filed an opposition to it and a motion to quash. Now, as I said in my story, that suggests to me that the person who was subpoenaed is Marty Singer, the legendary entertainment lawyer, and I explained why that makes sense, because in one of the alleged victims goes by the name Jane Doe 1. She alleges that she was attacked by Masterson in 2003. She went to the LAPD. There was an investigation, but it was closed. After that, her testimony is that 3 people pressured her to sign an agreement with Danny. One was Danny's attorney, Marty Singer. One was Scientology's attorney, Kendrick Moxon. And one was an ethics officer in Scientology. And she testified that these 3 people pressured her that if she didn't sign this non-disclosure agreement and accept some money from Danny, she would then be declared a suppressive person by the church and would lose all contact with her family. And that's the context she testified that she agreed to sign that agreement. So it makes perfect sense to me if the prosecution is building a case, not only that these women say they were attacked, but also to explain why it took them so long to come forward. It makes sense to me that they would want Marty Singer to come in and testify on the witness stand about that effort to shut up Jane Doe number 1. But apparently his law firm is not happy about it, and they're fighting it.
I would imagine they are. I would imagine they don't want to be in a witness box being questioned about it. I do want to ask you about something, Tony. The last time I had you on here on Sidebar, it was to discuss how Danny Masterson was attempting to delay this trial, or maybe I should say his attorney was trying to delay it, because you had reported that his attorney was trying to delay it by saying that she was handling the confidential arbitration of Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer. And because of that, this criminal trial should be pushed out to January. Well, I don't think you have to be a lawyer to know that, unsurprisingly, that was denied. This trial is continuing into October. But what is interesting, and what you have just reported, is the judge's order has been released. her reasoning for why she denied this, why this trial is moving forward. And I would say it was quite telling, was it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad I got a hold of this. She made a written ruling in this case. I think she realized this is a very important thing, and they'd probably try to appeal later. So she spelled it out in detail why a criminal case takes precedent over a private arbitration, and she uses real strong language. You can see it in my Substack. And look, this matter's over. This attempt to delay the trial didn't work. But there are still a couple things in her ruling that I think we should pay attention to going forward. One is she pointed out Danny has the right to an attorney, but he doesn't have the right to two attorneys. So even if Sean Hawley is busy with the Trevor Bauer arbitration in Washington, D.C., and can't make some of the dates of the trial, he's still got his other attorney, Philip Cohen. And Judge Olmedo has said she's not going to stop the trial just because one of Danny's attorneys can't make it. So that's really interesting. And the other thing I thought was important was that Danny did get a delay when he fired his previous attorneys. He fired Tom Mesereau, one of the most famous defense attorneys in America, and that bought him 6 weeks. She says in this ruling that won't work again. She basically let him know if you're thinking of firing Sean Hawley and Philip Cohen, you're not getting another delay. So I mean, she's made it pretty plain. This trial is starting on October 11th in Los Angeles.
And you're going to be covering it, Tony, and we would love to have you back on to talk about it as this trial progresses and what revelations come up about Danny Masterson and possibly Scientology. Tony Ortega, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And real quick, tell everybody where they can find your Substack and how to find more about you.
Thank you, Jesse. Please come to my Substack. It's tonyortega.substack.com, also known as the Underground Bunker. We have a new story about Scientology every day at 7 a.m. Eastern.
Tony, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we always knew that there was really no love lost between Donald Trump and the Lincoln Project. This, of course, an organization that labels itself a pro-democracy group that aimed at holding leaders accountable. They've been very critical of the former president, but things have taken an even more personal turn. Trump has threatened to sue both the Lincoln Project and Fox News over airing local ad buys that were targeted to run in places where he was most likely to see them on TV. And Trump wrote on Truth Social, the Paul Ryan run Fox only has high standards for Trump ads, but not for anyone else. He said the perverts should not be allowed to false advertise, and Fox News should not be allowed to make it happen. See you all in court. Well, Rick Wilson, the co-founder and board member of the Lincoln Project, had quite the response.
Hey, folks. Wanted to say hi really quickly and to just give Donald Trump a message. Since you threatened to sue the Lincoln Project this morning, go for it. Go for it. Come at me. I can't wait. We're delighted by the thought that you would try to sue us, Donald. Do it. Do it. I double dog dare you.
Well, and that is just a sample. So, the question is, are Wilson, the Lincoln Projects, Fox News, are they in legal trouble? Does Trump have a case? Well, I'm joined right now by Aidan McLaughlin, the editor-in-chief of Mediaite and host of Mediaite's The Interview podcast. Aidan, my goodness, what a story. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Jesse.
I actually want to start right now, if I can, with the ad that got Trump really, really angry. Let's play that right now.
Dear MAGA, we have some bad news. No, not that he lost. Not that your little coup attempt failed and its planners and the attackers are going to jail. No, the really bad news is why Trump told you he lost. Why he set it up way before the 2020 election. It wasn't voter fraud, but it was fraud. Trump told you the election was stolen to rip you off, to sucker you, to take your hard-earned money and shovel it into his pockets. He spent it on himself, not to take back the White House. It was the biggest scam in political history. Every dollar you sent him paid to keep his shaky business empire and lavish lifestyle going. It was a sucker's game all along. And you know who the sucker is? It's you.
All right, so before we start with, whether any of that is true, Aidan, where are these ads running?
So the Lincoln Project for years has been targeting Donald Trump with these particularly sort of vicious campaign ads. This one in particular, we reached out to the Lincoln Project. It was run in Bedminster, New Jersey, which is where Donald Trump has a golf resort and where he spends some of the warmer months of the year. But the Lincoln Project has aired ads in Palm Beach as well, where Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort is. They've also aired ads in Washington, D.C., when Trump was in the White House and was known to watch Fox News a lot.
And obviously, this ad was pretty critical. And again, we'll get into whether or not any of it's true. What are some of the other ads that they've been running? What have they said? The same message or a little bit different?
Yeah, I thought this one was particularly funny because, it's called Szoke. And obviously, the intent of these ads, they're really made for an audience of one. The Lincoln Project is all of its money comes from donations. And the entire goal of these ads that they've been running is to get Donald Trump's attention, to get him to lash out at them on Truth Social or Twitter before that. And then when they do get that to happen, they get an enormous amount of fundraising coming in. So previous ads have been in the same vein. They've been sort of childish and taunting, really trying to get under his skin. And you saw, we got a statement from Rick Wilson, who was the co-founder of the Lincoln Project, who we heard before in that video. And he had a similar statement. He called Trump flabby and impotent. So that's sort of the kind of rhetoric that the Lincoln Project goes for, because I think they know that those sort of schoolyard taunts are what really gets under Trump's skin.
Oh, I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that in a minute. Don't you worry, Aiden. We're going to get to that. Before we do, though, I have to ask, we're talking about any legal liability here. So they made a lot of claims against Donald Trump in that ad. And if we're talking about a potential lawsuit for, let's say, something like defamation, where, again, if you're going after a public figure, you're talking about a public figure, it has to be a false statement that they knew was false, so they made with reckless disregard for the truth. Is there anything in that ad that we just saw that's not true?
Not that I've seen. Basically the ad focuses on the fact that Donald Trump has been pushing this claim that the 2020 election was stolen for several years and has been fundraising off of it. The ad calls Trump supporters suckers for basically buying into that. There's been a lot of reporting on the fact that the funds that Trump has raised have not been going to Republican candidates, particularly in advance of the midterms. That's something that the RNC has not been happy about. Particularly, some of these Republican candidates have been struggling in advance of the midterms. So I didn't see any particular claim in that ad that I would say is false and that Trump could sue over. And certainly Fox News, which Trump said he would sue as well as the Lincoln Project, or suggested that he would sue as well as the Lincoln Project. I don't think they're worried about this at all. The ad buy was made locally. So just to explain what that means a little bit, there are two different types of ads that when you're watching Fox News on your cable box that air. There are national ads and then local ads. So the national ones are the big, Alamo ads, insurance company ads that you see, and the local ones are the ones, for your local car dealership. Because the Lincoln Project is aiming these ads at Donald Trump in wherever he's staying at the time, they're buying local ads, and you buy those through your cable provider. You don't buy them through Fox News. So Fox News never actually even saw this ad, approved of it, and decided, okay, we're going to air this nationally on Fox. It went through the cable provider. So it's unclear how Fox is in any way liable for the contents of this ad.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We actually got a statement from Fox News' representatives where they said the Lincoln Project never placed an ad with Fox News. Moreover, Fox News didn't even sell a national advertising spot to the Lincoln Project, given the political advocacy group typically makes local ad buys through cable providers in, say, Palm Beach or Bedminster, New Jersey. The Lincoln Project confirms that the ad that raised Trump's ire, the one that we just talked about, ran on, quote, cable news in Bedminster, New Jersey, where Trump is currently residing. Fox News also confirmed to Mediaite that this was a local buy and they did not run a local a Lincoln Project ad. Doesn't mean that Fox News is not getting slack over it, right?
Right. I haven't seen anyone, Donald Trump has periodically attacked Fox News for, since 2015 when he first launched his bid for the presidency. He gets particularly incensed when Fox News airs something that he doesn't like, whether it's an interview with one of his critics or whether it's, an ad from a person that's criticizing him. So he has lashed out at Fox News before for these kind of things. This, I think, is the first time that he's launched a real serious threat of a lawsuit. we have to mention as well that Donald Trump has made these legal threats before. In July, he sent a 283-page letter to CNN threatening to sue the network after they spent a couple of years calling his stolen election claims lies. So these legal threats get made by Donald Trump a lot, particularly against media companies. He said that he's going to sue, NBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Those lawsuits rarely come into fruition.
Well, let's listen to Rick Wilson's response, because I know that's what we've all been waiting to hear.
You're not going to sue anybody, Donald. You're not going to do You're not going to do a thing. You are weak. You are impotent. You are flabby. You are sitting there in the bridal suite at Mar-a-Lago or in the bridal suite at Bedminster, grinding your gears, wondering why that the Lincoln Project, no matter how many times you tried to kill us, keeps coming at you. You know why? We're here in this fight for the long haul because you are a threat to democracy. You are a threat to America. You are a threat to the Republic. You are a threat to the Constitution. You are a thief of classified documents. You are a traitor to this country. You've tried to overthrow this government and the system of our peaceful transition of power. And you.
Well, that's one way to say it. I guess the question is, are you surprised he went out that far against Trump? I mean, to be honest with you, I wasn't that familiar with Mr. Wilson. So to hear this, it's kind of alarming.
Alarming, not at all surprising to anyone who's followed Rick Wilson over the years. He has always been a firebrand in conservative politics. He has been an advisor to Republican candidates for years, and during the Trump era came out as vocally anti-Trump. The entire point of these ads and the entire point of the Lincoln Project is to get Trump mad and to get Trump talking about the Lincoln Project so that in turn the Lincoln Project can raise its profile and in turn raise dollars. So Rick Wilson coming out and basically responding with like tantamount bluster as Donald Trump to Donald Trump's legal threat is not surprising at all. He also, the way he speaks is always very, I would say, flowery. It's probably a generous way to put it. That's also not surprising. That those sorts of insults are pretty much on brand for Rick Wilson. I will say the one thing, and Jessica, I actually kind of wanted your opinion on it, that I was unsure about from this ad, whether or not it could be a statement that could be proven true or false and might pose some legal peril for them, is that they say that every dollar you sent him, Trump, paid to keep his shady business empire and lavish lifestyle going. Now, you're the legal expert. Do you think that saying every dollar, there might be a case where they could prove that, some dollar went to a candidate, so it didn't pay to keep his lavish life going? That was one of the lines from the ad that I was shaking on. The rest is all pretty much proven fact.
Well, the thing is sometimes, if you want to call this advertising, right, you're allowed kind of flowery language, puffery in a way, right? You can't, when people do ads for something, you're not going to hold them straight to the fact unless they're really deceptive. Look, the thing with them is if this was completely not true, right? If they're making something up completely untrue, they know it's not true, they know it's going to hurt Donald Trump, I think that's where they would get themselves into some jeopardy. But if this is actually, like you mentioned, there's a basis for truth for it, I would say it's not really going to be a strong lawsuit for Donald Trump. And it's the same thing with Rick Wilson too. Let me just add that. He'll say Donald Trump's a traitor, Donald Trump held onto classified information. Even if it's proven in a later case that Donald Trump really didn't have confidential materials, everything we're seeing in all the reporting would suggest he really believed that was true and had a good faith belief that was true. That's why defamation cases are really tough to prove. And when we look at something like, we talk about Johnny Depp, or we talk about those kinds of cases, those are kind of rarities. So I would say at this point, obviously anybody can file a lawsuit. Doesn't mean that they're going to be successful. I would say the bar would be pretty high because based on what you're saying and what we're hearing, there's some justification for what they're saying, right?
Totally. Yeah. I think there's a lot of reporting about how Trump is using the money that he's raised from people and not using it to put it towards political causes or to even fight the election. He's saying that he's asking for all of these donations as a means of fighting back against the stolen election of 2020. It's unclear what he's done to do that beyond just holding rallies. So I think there is a good basis for the ad, and it sounds like it falls under the purview of basically political rhetoric.
And real quick before I let you go, has Trump responded to Rick Wilson's comments? And do you think he
Not
will?
the new comments. He issued, he had the initial statement on Truth Social where he called the Lincoln Project a sleaze factory. Since Rick Wilson has replied, Trump has not issued another truth about it. I know Rick Wilson would love nothing more, so I'll keep an eye out.
It is getting ugly. Aidan McLaughlin, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time. Again, Aidan, editor-in-chief of Mediaite, and you can listen to the interview podcast presented by Mediaite as well. Aidan, thanks so much.
Thanks, Jesse.
And everyone out there, thanks for joining us here on Sidebar. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.